Welcome to another episode of Unboxing Entrepreneurship with Pallavi. Remote working is pretty common now. There are a lot of organizations who have gone fully remote after COVID. But when you're starting out your startup, is that the right choice for you? Today I'm talking to Gunjan. She's the founder of Copylove. And since 2015, when she started her organization, it has been fully remote. So we are going to explore the remote side of a startup world. Let's get right into it. Hi, Gunjan. Welcome to Unboxing Entrepreneurship.
Hi, Pallavi. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you, and we are going to talk about remote working. I feel like you've been the pioneer in remote working because you've been doing it for so long, before it became a trend. But let's hear a little bit about yourself and your company before we get to the remote working topic.
Absolutely. A pleasure to be here. Okay. So, Pallavi, I go back 21 years. Okay. That's when I started working. I started my career as a copywriter with Ogilvy first and went on to work with Lintas. Those were my early years. Those were some leading names at that point in time. And I had the privilege of
Hmm.
working on some very key accounts, such as Orange and later on Unilever brands and stuff like that. Got a good pan media experience and actually the seeds of remote working were sown then, and I will talk about it more as
Right.
we kind of go along, right? But yeah, post that I went into as became an independent freelance consultant, and then I started Copylove 8 years back in 2015, right? Primarily as a boutique copywriting and content solution studio. And the
Hmm.
transition we are making now is that we are also, going into much more strategic and branding led copy. Really, that's what we do. We've always been a lean principled company. We are a remote company because of that reason as well. We
Yeah.
are format agnostic, industry agnostic, and solutions driven, all women team, incidentally. And
Right.
yeah, that's a very very brief introduction about who I am and what we do. Yeah.
Awesome. So, few things that I picked up from there. So, you started in 2015, which, it is not really that long ago when you think about digital transformation and how people have adapted to working online. But it does seem a lifetime ago because, as we know, COVID was really the time where everybody became, very familiar with the online tools and how to work on Zoom. Everybody knew how to log into Zoom. Of course, in 2015, when you started, as I said, the tools were available, but the mindset was not. So, when you started, did you face any difficulty, or in finding the right talent who knew how to work like this, or were when you were talking to other people and trying to hire them, were they more enthusiastic about coming into an office and brainstorming with the team? Because let's face it, the work that you do does require a lot of interaction with team members, right?
Yes, yes. Actually, even before I answer that, I'll just go back a little bit into the origin of why remote, and how it kind of very nicely flowed into a lot of things that you kind of asked. Okay, so
Hmm.
the epiphany, or rather the moment when I thought that we had the privilege of working remotely was in one of the train journeys. So along with my work at Ogilvy and Lintas, I was also freelancing parallelly, right?
Hmm.
Because I wanted to explore that universe, and you wanted to make the most of my working time and stuff like that. And I realized that I could send client headlines in the train on a very basic phone, right? And
Hmm.
that's the time that I realized that compared to my other colleagues at office who had to sit on a machine and stuff like that,
Hmm.
my work could be very different, right? And that was the
Hmm.
time essentially the whole idea kind of spawned that I can make a remote setup, really, right?
Hmm.
From then on, two three reasons why I wanted to go remote. Firstly, because of the travel, right?
Yeah.
Stay in Mumbai, and my home was at the other fag end of the city, and so 4 hours gone just traveling, 2 hours each
Hmm.
way. That was the first reason. The second reason was also that though I loved the work, I'll be honest that the work of advertising and the real the writing piece, the thinking piece, etc., was all very exciting for me. But many times the processes I was not able to really assimilate and make the most out of it, because a lot of it was traveling from one meeting to the other and sitting and just, yes, sometimes it was brainstorming, but most of the times it was really honestly a lot of conversations and stuff like that. And I felt that I could do a much more effective job of it, sitting, doing things at my comfortable pace, right? And that was the reason. And third reason was also because I was planning to have a child at a point in time, and with absolute respect to the women who really straddle the two worlds with so much class, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So
Mm.
I don't want to leave my kid behind somewhere and work somewhere, and neither do I want to break in my career, etc., as
Mm.
well, to take care of my child. And I thought that with this privilege I can surely kind of build two worlds together, right?
Mm.
uh, so that is essentially why I started remote. Speaking of talent, it has been very serendipitous for me. Most of my team members have really come into my life by chance, and by beautiful chance, I would say. So I met my early members during my freelance years. So I would mentor different agencies, and I would also work with different agencies and stuff like that, and we built certain friendships over a period of time, right? And that kind of grew very easily, because they also somehow wanted to work out of the system and yet work for the system, right? So
Mm.
that kind of bonding started happening. And incidentally, in the early team members brainstorming or any of that was never an issue, because we were all very self driven, right? All of it
Mm.
comes. So the idea, what I kind of also realized, is that it's less about being geographically together or physically together. It's as long as
Mm.
you have the mental chemistry, it's good enough,
Mm.
the kind of things that we realized. In terms of when you said that we had the tools but we didn't have the mindset, that is so true, because in the early years I had a challenge, letting big companies realize that we are serious about what we are doing. You know,
Yeah.
they would just feel that we are just going to be sitting out of home, and whenever we find some kind of time on the side, we'll
Yes.
knock out some of the copy. Otherwise, we may not even look at it. And I would
Yeah.
say that is the difference that COVID really created. We had
Mm.
the we were already Skype. Skype was big at that time, and as I
Mm.
said, our chemistries were good. We were already working a lot, etc. Uh,
Mm.
but a lot of companies were not serious about us. But COVID really brought about that seriousness, that it is possible to build serious and big and thriving businesses out of wherever we want, and suddenly there were no boundaries. So that was the
Mm.
biggest experience, or the biggest change that we felt.
Actually, you bring up a good point. I when I thought of asking you these questions, I was going to look at very much the internal aspect of how a company functions when you're working remotely. What are the things you need to do? But being in the same industry as you, I also realized that there are certain clients who will view you as a little bit more serious if you have a physical office and you have a team and you have this whole um, you're showing what your setup looks like, right? Even though nothing in my job requires me to be in an office. We're going to work on a computer. I need a desk. I have a bigger desk at home as opposed to, say, an office.
Correct.
But yeah, it's that kind of mindset that people come from. That where is your office location? Is it at a physical place where I can visit you?
Yes, absolutely. I've had clients saying that I'm just coming to your office. Just tell me where I'm have an office. And suddenly you could like just feel them like snigger ki acha aisa bhi hai. And this is how we worked across all our clients for all these years. And then it took them some time to warm up, but I guess the work ultimately speaks, and that finally kind of worked out for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Just deviating a little bit from our topic, you said you're an all-woman team. Now, is that by design, or has that come about because you are a remote organization?
It came about, honestly, but I think I was somewhere a little inclined towards it, a bit, subconsciously inclined, primarily because it's a little different deal for women,
Mm.
at work, primarily because there's it's very, very well, often said and oft quoted that, women have a lot riding on them, right?
Mm.
And it's somehow always been there in my mind that that should not be the reason why they don't work with the best of brands, right? I'll give you
Yeah.
some examples from my team itself, right? So, for
Mm.
example, me only, when I started off in I had my son, I was like, that should not be any reason why I should take a break when I really can manage the two. And women do have that capacity to be really able to manage
Yeah.
a lot of worlds together. So I was like, I don't want to stop. And, within a month of my work, of having my child, I came back to work. Right. I
Mm.
literally, I've said this elsewhere in the past also, that literally to the last moment I was working purely for the
Mm.
joy of it. Right.
Yeah.
And right after my son was born, within a month, I came back to work. It was all possible only because of remote working. Now, in my
Mm.
team, for example, I have women who want to be with their older parents, want to spend time
Mm.
with them, want to be, some of the parents are even ailing. I
Mm.
feel that should not be the reason why they don't get to work on top brands, or
Yes.
to do the best jobs in the world that are there, or the, really keep up with the trends. That should not
Mm.
set them back just because they are willing to be doing something else for their, loved ones.
Mm.
And I think that
Mm.
has then consciously become a driving factor.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it has also been so that the few male CVs that I received were not good enough. So it somehow happened by design
Yeah.
that it
Yeah.
kind of got constructed like that. But now I see more purpose in it. That's why it's really happening.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
some women in my team who just want to be in their own zone and are not willing, kind of go into the mainstream and work. And yet those, as I said, they should not be the reasons why they are not a part of the work of the mainstream. So today I
Mm.
have team members who are, bringing up their children, taking care of their parents, living life on their own terms, and yet doing the
Mm.
best work of the industry. It doesn't need them to really be in a physical office and,
Mm.
be where everybody expects you to be. And, that is not the criterion anymore.
Yeah. So I totally resonate with that. I mean, even though I have a smaller team compared to you, my team is also all women. And it's not something that I actively have spoken about. It's not like I say men cannot apply to the job roles. But perhaps because it is a remote organization, maybe it gives confidence to women to apply for this particular role, because let's face it, a lot of them do want the flexibility, especially in their later years, and it could be because of marriage, parental responsibilities, or like in my case, I have neither of those, but I like to have a balance in my life, so I prefer the remote setup where 1 hour in the afternoon I can take for whatever I want to do, whether it's gardening, play with my dogs, or do my yoga. So but having said that, when I have seen the women that have worked in my organization, they are also able to balance so many different things. And I have seen in the 6 7 months that somebody has been working with me, I have seen the um, I guess the level of contentment that someone has been able to achieve, because they do want to work whatever their family situation is. At the end of the day, they are skilled to do something. They want to be able to contribute and feel good about themselves, that I'm contributing to somebody else's life. I'm not doing just the daily job of looking after my house and all of those admin chores, which, let's face it, all of us get really tired of.
Correct.
So, after 6 7 months of working with that setup and balancing these 3 4 things, they feel much more confident, and they are able to contribute also in a much greater way within the job itself, right? So it gives them that confidence. And I think that is probably the best thing about remote working. It as a society, it makes us a little bit more confident and a little bit more, yeah, self-confident about, who we are and what we can do.
Much more confident. And I think, on the contrary, where a lot of people may ask that, oh, does remote working mean that you guys are productive enough? I think it actually doubles productivity, right? Because you are, as you said, you're happier, you're in a better
Mm.
space, you're doing all the things that your heart really wants to do. And plus, it
Yes.
also, there's certain gratitude that happens, in the sense of, I am in a position where I'm able to do all of the things that are really there in my list. And hence the
Right.
commitment, actually, I've seen increasing, rather than uh, being in a questionable place, that, oh, is everybody being productive enough, etc.
Correct, correct. All right. So we've discussed the benefits of remote working quite a lot. Have you, over the course of so many years, have you I guess, have you come across a challenge, or have you changed some of the things that you have done, when managing a remote team? You can talk about it from a founder's perspective, but you can also talk about it from a team member's perspective, that how do you think teams benefit, whichever you prefer.
Yes, absolutely. So challenges are plenty. Okay, primarily because primarily because I was also a first generation entrepreneur, and I have
Yeah.
also been a highly self-driven, self-motivated kind of person, right?
Hmm.
When I started, it was very easy for me. I really took to it like a fish to water. I was like, this is just
Hmm.
the thing that I want to do.
Hmm.
And somehow I expected, also from the early recruits and the kind of, camaraderie that we had, that this is going to continue. People will
Hmm.
come and they will police themselves and it'll happen and this and that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But it didn't happen that way. Obviously, there are a
Hmm.
variety of people in the world, and different drivers and different, things work for different people. And there
Yeah.
were issues in terms of, is somebody really putting in their best? And
Yeah.
while there's a very, very flexible atmosphere, yet I would feel that, some of them are really, not up to the mark or not up to the commitment and all of that
Hmm.
also, right? So those kind of forced me to also start a few friendly measures. Nothing, not like,
Hmm.
so the idea, and in principle, I don't ever mean to, put cameras on anybody. And
Yes.
I share it very openly with them that it's really a very self-policing sort of atmosphere,
Hmm.
but certain rules. So,
Hmm.
whether it means like, we do more touch bases, more huddles, and put
Hmm.
down some SODs, EODs, and basics like that.
Yeah.
Those systems started coming in place, which I didn't have earlier.
Hmm.
Because the team kind of expanded and grew, and there were more people coming in who wanted to, more different kinds of mindsets rather getting added to the
Hmm.
pool, right? So
Hmm.
those systems started happening, right?
Hmm.
uh, However, the biggest challenge that, however, I continue to face, so this is easier, right, to kind of conquer by
Yeah.
putting certain systems and meeting up and all that. The biggest challenge, however, that I continue to have, and I do not have an answer to it yet, is um, the physical, camaraderie that you build, right?
Yeah.
So when I came to Mumbai, I told you that I've spent my first 3 years at Ogilvy and the next 3 years at Lintas. The kind of friendships I've made friends for a lifetime. Just those
Hmm.
2 to 3 years of working together, doing days, nights together, gave me
Yeah.
friends that are a treasure for a lifetime, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
here I have people who've been working with each other for 5, 6, 7, even 8 years, and yet I have challengers in terms of, you know I don't expect them to become besties, and that's not a requirement, but just, and for all, for all the, the technicality, do they have the right chemistry to work? Yes. Can they pull off big
Hmm.
projects? Yes. But I'm just talking of that X factor, when you
Yeah.
really meet the best of buddies, and you know that,
Hmm.
and so technically, as I said, everything's fine. Like, does the team have each other's back? Yes, absolutely. All
Yeah.
of those are ticks. But
Hmm.
have they made friendships? Have they made bonds?
Hmm.
Have they made those
Hmm.
natural chemistries? I think there
Hmm.
is a distance still to be, traversed over there, because
Hmm.
I know the difference that it makes. You meet, and those cups of tea and those little sessions, and those things I sometimes really miss. And that's the idea sometimes, to through huddles. Of course, some are work huddles, but some are completely non-work huddles, and then
Hmm.
get laughing and chatting, and like, oh, I so wish you would be doing this in person. That's the
Yeah.
one challenge that I continue to have. And also because some of us are in Mumbai, but not all of us are in Mumbai. So I can't even
Yeah.
say, let's meet more regularly, because they are spread across Bangalore, Pune, Goa. So it's
Hmm.
practical at times. But yeah, let's see how the story kind of progresses. So between each other, I wish there was more chemistry. Like with me, everybody has an
Yeah.
independent relationship, and that's the
Yes.
step that I also take, and they also take with me. Are the team members within each other as friendly? I think they have a distance to go still. So
Yeah, yeah. I've also been working on this quite a lot, because eventually it ends up that every team member has a direct connect with the founder if you've set up your hierarchy system like that, or whoever your manager is, right? But within each other, even if they are working on a project together, they tend to come through you. Like they might just say that, okay, I've done my bit and now the next thing has to be done by someone else. So I've also been struggling with that quite a fair bit, and I've tried to get the team to talk to each other, but then also they would put it in a common chat, so that kind of everyone sees it. So I think that relationship does need to be built, especially when you're working on projects together. But otherwise, also, they everyone should feel like they are part of one big group, not that they have they're only friends with
Yes,
the founder.
that's true.
So
That's
yeah, I think that is, well, I don't know whether that can be replaced in fully in a remote setup, but maybe we'll evolve into different types of friendships when you
yes,
work
hopefully
remotely.
new apps will come. Maybe who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Things we had not imagined before. All right. So before we end, what do you have to say to founders who are thinking about a remote setup? And would it be different, whatever you're about to say, would it be different if the founder was someone who has worked in a physical setup before, as opposed to someone who's gone straight from college into a remote setup?
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, so I do feel that, straight from college into remote is a bit of a challenge, right?
Yes.
Because it's important to get a feel of the industry and how the industry works, even if it's for a short period of time, right?
Yes.
While our own rules are great and it's great to be able to build your system in your way on your terms, but a little bit of understanding on how projects are really done together will
Hmm.
definitely give that that early understanding of how systems
Hmm.
work, and hence how to replicate those systems in remote environments, right?
Correct.
So that I think is very irreplaceable. The early idea is definitely enough, is required. uh, how to the tips to a remote working organization is that it's not that easy, right?
Yes.
But the perks are so much that it makes you go on.
Yeah.
So many rewards are there that it really makes you go on. So but the biggest thing that I would say is that trust is the biggest thing that keeps a remote working system going.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that is so important to build. And hence it may need, like in my team also, as I shared earlier also, it worked as a filter. Am I able
Yeah.
to trust this person instinctively? Nothing wrong with the
Yeah.
person, everything is being
Yeah.
delivered on time, but there is an instinctive trust that I need to build with the person. So a
Hmm.
lot of instincts have to come into play much more in remote, because a lot of it is happening in your head, a lot of it is
Hmm.
happening in a place that is not visible, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Your intuition has to be really heightened, is what I feel. The fact
Hmm.
fact of you vibing with the person even through a screen is so important. Otherwise,
Hmm.
meeting and vibing is much more easier, obviously.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think it's also a bigger test of team camaraderie. It's a bigger test of
Hmm.
being united as an organization.
Hmm.
So in the past, for example, there have been medical requirements that my team had. Did anybody else, did the people kind of fill up, stand up, etc., even
Hmm.
at a place where you've not even met each other for years together, right? So stuff
Hmm.
like that. So that I think one has to really sharpen and hone one's intuition and instinct to really build a remote organization, which is very, very different from how you know uh, a brick and mortar system will probably tell you to do it. uh, that I feel, the trust factor and the intuition factor will have to become a differential advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of trust, especially because we are not those kind of founders who are going to put a camera and track what you're doing.
True.
So you have to have that, you have to have lots of conversations to say that if somebody's doing something, is that the best that they are able to do? And it may not necessarily be that they're doing it because they don't want to do a good job. They may not know how to do it, right? So you have to kind of get very, very involved and say, how come it is taking you this long? Here's another way to do it well, right? So you have to have that initial trust to say that everyone is trying to do their best. It's just that they need a helping hand, and they may not ask for it because it's a remote organization. Whereas in a physical, when you're sitting next to each other, if you see somebody struggling, it's very easy to step up and say, "Do you need my help?" But when no one has raised their hand, it's very hard to do that.
Very true.
All right, so that was it was good to get your perspective on remote organizations and how it works and how it can be improved. Thank you
Right.
so much for sharing your thoughts, Gunjan.
An absolute pleasure, Pallavi. Always happy to chat with you. And thank you for having me, of course.
No worries. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.